Wait, so it says it could have potentially made 400 million yuan as well. So this isn't saying that they made 42 million. No, what they're saying here is that they have made a minimum of 42 million, potentially 55 million, perhaps even more. Anywhere between 40 to 60 million dollars right now is the estimate within its first week. Again, Genshin Impact, 60 million. Honkai Star Rail, 40 million in 5 to 6 days. Tower of Fantasy, 34 million in 2 weeks. This is fantastic news. For anyone wondering how Wuthering Waves was doing over the course of its first week, at least financially, this should hopefully put your minds at ease. GameLook, a Chinese website, posted an article stating Wuthering Waves is stable and the global revenue in the first week may exceed 300 million. That's not $300 million. The equivalent of this is roughly $42 million. GameLook reports on the first weekend of late May, as expected, the mobile game players in the author's circle of friends were either playing the Dungeon Fighter mobile game or frantically pushing maps and playing Shanghai and Mingchao. Mingchao, of course, is Wuthering Waves. However, although both products are considered to be hot games recently, there does not seem to be much controversy on the internet about the popularity of the Dungeon Fighter mobile games. On the other hand, although GameLook has previously reported that the performance of Wuthering Waves on the first day was quite good, players with different labels in the secondhand game circle have too many completely different opinions on the product, both in terms of the game's reputation and commercial performance. I will note here, by the way, that this is translated using Google Translate, so the translation might be a little bit off. Taking Bilibili as an example, under the search results with Wuthering Waves as a keyword, there are some bloggers who directly criticize the game, saying it had a terrible start, and let's be honest, it did. There were some bugs, which were all remedied very quickly. There were some crashes, some FPS issues, some latency issues, a lot of which were actually resolved. I have multiple videos covering Wuthering Waves, all expressing how much fun I have been having in this game. I truly do love it. It is an incredible game thus far, but I cannot deny that it did very much have some issues. There are bloggers who carefully analyze the music, the design, and other elements of the game, not to mention various starting strategies. In the face of all the controversy, I mean, there aren't really many controversies, let's be honest here, and doubts from the players, including the design of the game, Wuthering Waves, including some problems that occurred at the beginning, many players have given a lot of valuable suggestions, so GameLook will not elaborate on them. We have said before that there are actually no irreversible errors in Wuthering Waves at present, which is true. They have plenty of room here to improve and to hopefully grow, including the benefits in game lags that were complained by players in the beginning. And let's be honest here, even when Genshin launched, there were numerous issues that could have potentially hindered it, but there was just no competition at the time or no reference to compare the game to. Kuro has also made improvements last weekend through multiple hot updates, free card drawing resources, and self-selected 5 stars. Yes, there are 2 different 5-star selectors we were given. We're given dozens of free polls. However, regarding the commercial performance of Wuthering Waves, and this is the important part of the article, since its launch, GameLook has also discovered that in the absence of much official and third-party, such as some bloggers in the community who do transaction statistics, information at the moment, many netizens have underestimated the performance of Wuthering Waves. Underestimated. There are plenty of people on Reddit that are saying the game is doing poorly and that the game is dead on arrival. We're going to find out whether that's true or not. Have adopted an attitude of self-proving their position or just watching for fun, which has triggered various rhythms in the community. Merely GameLook's data and opinions cannot replace the official ones, but in our observation, the performance of Wuthering Waves in the first few days after its launch was actually quite good. The estimated recharge revenue of the mobile game version has exceeded 100 million yuan in 4 days after its release. The game also has its own official website recharge capability, and the revenue will only be underestimated. GameLook believes that the global revenue and guaranteed bottom line estimate of Wuthering Waves in the first week of its launch is also over 300 million yuan, which again, when converted, is over $42 million. So Wuthering Waves has made roughly a bare minimum of $42 million over the course of its first week. That is discounting purchases made through their own website. This is with Jian as the limited banner character, not Yinlin. This is with them giving out an egregious amount of free polls, 5-star selectors. They could have earned even more had they not been so generous with their compensation. For reference here, when Genshin Impact launched, it made $60 million in its first week. $42 million is not Genshin levels, but it is surprisingly close. Honkai Star Rail in its first 5 to 6 days made $40 million as well. Tower of Fantasy within its first 2 weeks made $34 million. Wuthering Waves, based off of this alone, is doing very good. not the Genshin killer levels that some people were predicting, but at the same time, I was also never of the opinion that it was going to kill Genshin. What I wanted was it to provide competition for Genshin so Genshin could improve. And at the same time, I really do like Kudo, so I wanted them to at least have a profitable product that succeeded, at least to a degree. Not to mention that the profit margin is as exaggerated as that of Genshin Impact back then. At least if it can quickly recover its investment and even operate stably, it'll be a high probability of securing its position as one of the new top 2 domestic games. Judging from its global performance in its first week, it can be compared with the 3 top overseas games in the first half of the year. There is no doubt that it will be listed as the 4th giant in this year's overseas market. Let me first talk about the conclusion. The first week turnover of Magic Tide on all platforms is likely to exceed 300 million yuan. If there is a surprise, it is not possible to reach 500 million yuan compared with the so-called Genshin Impact killer. Wuthering Waves is actually more similar to Arknights or Nikke from a long-term commercial perspective. Honestly, Nikke makes like an average of 20 to 35 million dollars a month, so if Wuthering Waves manages to kind of like fall in the 30 to 40 million a month category, then that is incredible. I think that'll be fantastic for the game and it's the longevity of the game and its growth. First of all, according to GameLook's observations of third-party data, the first week revenue of Wuthering Waves was about 1-to-1 on the iOS platform alone during the 4 days of last week. If estimated based on the iOS-Android ratio of about 1 to 1.5, the global mobile revenue of Wuthering Waves has successfully exceeded 100 million. Even if we take into account that many players may have already drawn the characters that they wanted in the pool thanks to the in-game benefits during the 3 days of the week, and their overall willingness to consume has decreased, there is still a global turnover of 160 to 200 million yuan on mobile terminals. There is an official website recharge part, it will be even more. On this basis, if we calculate based on the PC and mobile revenue ratio of 4 to 6, the first week revenue of Wuthering Waves is at least between 300 to 400 million yuan. In the current secondary game market, this is already a result that is quite enviable to peers, and it is a level that requires opening champagne to celebrate. Wait, so it says it could have potentially made 400 million yuan as well. So this isn't saying that they made 42 million. No, what they're saying here is that they have made a minimum of 42 million, potentially 55 million, perhaps even more. Anywhere between 40 to 60 million dollars right now is the estimate within its first week. Again, Genshin Impact, 60 million, Honkai Star Rail, 40 million in 5 to 6 days, Tower of Fantasy, 34 million in 2 weeks. This is fantastic news. It should be noted that GameLook's PC coefficient is much more restrained than the 70% revenue from PC revealed by Dust White Forbidden Zone. Whether considering the game's performance requirements or the game's combat experience, Wuthering Waves is a game that is better experienced on PC. It really is. More people can even play it on PC. It is not surprising the game's first week revenue exceeds its figure and brings surprises to the industry. At the end of the day, these numbers are not perfectly accurate, which means the total gross earnings for the first week may be higher or lower by any extent, 5%, 50% for all we know. The only ones that really know how much Wuthering Waves made is Kudo Games. But we can still get very, or at least as close to accurate as possible. Sensor Tower will give us an even better look into the game. We'll get unofficial estimates in just a few days. At the end of the day though, these numbers are phenomenal. They're not game breaking, they're not genre defining, they're not going to change the landscape of gacha gaming, but they are still very good. And based off of how many freebies we've received, if people purchase and spend during the Yinlin banner and continue to support the game, then it's going to continue to do incredibly well, produce hopefully equally as good story as the final 2 chapters of the game, hopefully improve their dub and keep giving us what we want, which is an incredibly fun game with great combat and lots of new unique experiences to have.